The benefit of the nominee, my name is Kemani Shongwa. And Beatrice, I see you have a very rich background in social work, and you also mentioned you worked with Oxfam as a relief food officer. And I'm certain you know part of your work in this ministry will involve the procurement and distribution of relief food. But this is one area that has been riddled with a lot of malpractices, especially the procurement and distribution. I'd want to hear what you would do if you are approved by this committee to ensure, one, that we have a very accountable system of procurement of the relief food and how it will be distributed on the ground to make sure that it gets to the right people, not benefiting government officers who are charged with the responsibility of distributing it. Two, I don't see in your CV and your work experience any experience touching on trade matters. And you know the ASAL docket with the East African community, trade is very critical. And part of the problems we have encountered in the recent past is having the government of Kenya not being present to negotiate on behalf of the country with the EAC countries. And we see an influx, especially of agricultural products, from onions, from our neighboring countries, potatoes, at times maize. Farmers in the south and North Rift, where you come from, suffer with their maize, and they can't market their maize because cheaper maize is coming from our neighbors in the region. What specific measures will you put in place to make sure that you negotiate for Kenya so that properly at the EAC to get exemptions on the tariff barriers that are there to make sure that our farmers are protected? Finally, I see you are a member of the selection panel of the Azimio running mate selection panel. That, and I'm asking this question because it would have a bearing on your decision-making abilities and capability. Do you think you made the right decision in your running mate decision in Azimio?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Majority Leader, Mr. Kimani. Now, on procurement on relief foods. Actually, the procurement process does not really have to be specific to the relief food. Procurement processes under finance are very clear, they are well stipulated, and the procedures must be followed in the sense that if a particular government, a particular institution would want to feed the people, and you've decided on a particular product to take to the people, what you do is you just advertise as it's been, you do all those procedures up to where you award the tender to distribute. And now after that, by the trickle down and up effect that we are saying, let's incorporate the communities down and then influence what happens here, originating from them. What we will do, we will produce a list of the potential beneficiaries or those ones that need to be helped or to be cushioned from the drought. Then those ones, lists that informs those that will benefit. Because the story to do with whether food reach the people or not, it's sometimes the making of the careless people because they think God in heaven is not watching. It is just good to be truthful. When it is time to feed the people, buy the food, make sure it reaches the most vulnerable members of the society. So for me, the procurement process is still as it is in the other ministries, in the other public finance management acts.
Chair, maybe before she moves away from that question, Beatrice, particularly what I want to hear, I don't know if you have been briefed from the ministry, what happens? In the procurement of relief food, they will usually go to some organization called the supplies branch. They pre-qualify people as suppliers of relief food with set prices. Then when they are procuring, they will usually just give tenders to those who are already pre-qualified within the system. But from the time the supplies branch is pre-qualifying people, the prices given vary. For instance, a bag of maize or beans a year ago or 9 months ago may not be the price today. What I want to hear in terms of getting value for money for the people of Kenya, will we continue with the same old system through supplies branch, or will you come in with new thinking to make sure that the procurement process is very transparent, you are able to match with the market prices, because there's no reason buying a bag of maize for 6,000 shillings or when the current market price is 4,000 shillings, simply because the people who are pre-qualified by the suppliers branch were pre-qualified at a time when the prices were 6,000. That's what I would want to hear. What new innovation, what new thinking are you bringing to the ministry?
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Kimani. My understanding is...
So address them through the chair.
Through the chair?
Yes.
Through the speaker?
Yes.
Sir. Okay, I get you. Now, I think what we need to do is, of course, there are malpractices that people have gotten used to. And having been a relief monitor, the process are very clear, just like the way you would procure. Of course, there is pre-qualification. But again, value for money should be informed by the market prices, such that you don't bring people that escalate or put the prices up for other value, yet the market price does not go along with it. I think if I'll be approved by this committee, I'll make sure I'll be myself present in terms of, if this is the pre-qualification, what is the market price, so that we get value for money. Mm-hmm. And then on the side of trade, whether I have knowledge of trade, through the chair, through the, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I'm used to, sorry. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would want to say that maybe the issue of trade is not really captured in my CV, but I can assure you I'm from Turkana, where we ourselves trade with the community from Sudan, which is part of the state member of AU's EAC. And we've also traded with a community from Uganda, which is also a member state of EAC. So when it comes to trade, there are two ways of doing it. One, there's that one of barter trade, where you are like commodity exchange for other commodities. There are also where monetary currency is involved. So, but sometimes, even as we speak of procurement being having variance in prices, I still believe even in the trade, the commodities that are brought, we must also study, because this commodity is not centralized in a place. It is all agricultural, sorry?
Nominee?
Yes, Speaker.
You didn't get his question.
Okay.
East African community, like all other regional trade blocs, trade is governed by rules. It's not about getting a bag of maize and cross to Sudan and come back with a cow, or vice versa. It is a trade regime that is complex, dealing with customs, movement of goods, who produces what, who sells what. And when the East African community countries come together, they formulate rules that govern how we trade with each other to give advantage to everybody. So his question is, your CV doesn't have anything to do with that kind of regime. If you find favor with the committee and get this office, how are you going to handle East African affairs, knowing, and this has come up before, that Kenya is a poor negotiator at the table of trade with its partners, that we have that history. What are you going to do to improve our bargaining chip at the table of trade negotiations? That is the question that the majority leader was asking you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will answer that. Anything that is falling under...
Speaker, probably even just to put it in layman's terms, for instance, between us and our neighboring country, Tanzania, there are onions that come from there. The people of Loitoktok and Kieni are growing onions. But because of the EAC common markets, we don't levy duties on products coming from, no taxes are paid on products coming from Tanzania. We also take our products, like you are saying, you take your products to Sudan without paying duty. They bring their products without paying duty. But we need to protect our onion farmer in Loitoktok and in Kieni. And why we have failed as a country is because we don't negotiate properly at the EAC Council of Ministers to protect our farmers. Because it's possible to exempt and say, for this particular product, our country is disadvantaged and we need to levy duty so that what is coming from Tanzania becomes more expensive to protect our local farmers. It is that, what I wanted to know is what would you do now to negotiate better? Do you have the appropriate negotiation skills to go and negotiate for Kenya?
Through the speaker, actually what is happening normally when the two parties that are supposed to be enjoying their own sovereignty are involved, what you do, you really have to have the skill of communicating, negotiating, consulting, so that at least you come to an agreement on give and take. Because I personally feel there's nothing impossible when the willing hearts sit. And of course, we already know so much of what is happening in the world has come out of negotiation, consulting, reviewing. So if I happen to be appointed to this docket, that will be my work. I will make sure the partners, my equals in those countries, are able to agree. We can share the report because I know we are beginning from somewhere. We are not starting from a plain ground. Actually, we will have the concept of what may have happened, and then we discuss based on that to do give and take so that our own customers, our own, because of course something, when a product comes cheap, it is good to their customers, but bad to the producer who is doing the same locally. So what we need to do is, we need a situation where the producer does not take advantage of the consumer, and the consumer as well do not suffer, but again are able to accommodate and get these products at a price of give and take. And for Kenya, definitely being a Kenyan representative at that time, if that time come to pass, then it will be my role to get into the trade, negotiate with those people, agree, of course, as consulting also with our own farmers on something that we will put on the table as they put theirs. So we agree finally on what the policy that would govern that free trade without disadvantaging any part of the country.
Your questions?
Then only one of the Azimio is left.
Yes, go ahead.
Through the chair, through the speaker, that was then. That was then that I was among the panelists that were able to choose the deputy party leader of our party person then. Actually, you know, sometimes you work things as they appear on the table. I did fairness. Every party that was there had their representative. They had their candidates also wanting the same. So there was no way I would take over. It's only issues that, as you said, issues on the table. We agreed, and we said the parameters of somebody who would suit a running mate should be like this, and those are the binding grounds through which people were vetted. And the person we got had what it took, because it was not the ODM that picked, it was all political membership that decided the vet. I was only one person from ODM, the rest are from the other representative of the parties. So I tell you, whatever happened, happened because there were benchmark through to operate. I was right at that time.
In any case, it was a political decision.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Junet?
Mr. Speaker, just to add to it, actually, I'm the one who appointed her to that committee. And I was satisfied with her work. She did a fantastic job. But anyway, that's beside the point. No, Kalonzo was going to become the president, up and belly. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, that is not the issue. I want to ask her, as somebody who has lived in ASAL area, and you know very well that people in that area, as the Deputy Speaker has asked, have suffered for many years. And most of the time, they complain that they don't get any help from government. But today, you have been nominated from an ASAL area to deal with those issues that affect those people who come from ASAL area and from regions that feel marginalized in this country, despite devolution being in place and counties being in place that money is devolved. What different are you going to do if you are approved by this committee to help those people who live in the ASAL areas? And secondly, you are going to become, if you are approved, the Minister for the East African Community. And you can see the community is growing. It used to be 6 in number. I think now they are 8 or something. DRC has joined. Somalia has joined. How are you going to harness the potential in that community, which now has close to 500 million people in terms of numbers? How will that be, helpful to you if you are approved as a minister by this committee? Thank you very much. Through
the speaker.
Go ahead.
Being an ASAL person, and who grew in a ASAL, I tend to believe I have what it takes through my own personal experience and through what I was seeing people do in that area. Pastoralists are good people. Pastoralists, if you recognize, if they are made to understand things and then you are there to explain, pastoralists are good people. They can adopt new initiatives when sensitized. If created an awareness, they can implement things that would be implemented elsewhere. So what I mean by me being there, I'll make sure they're involved in all these things that would improve their lives. Actually, I will be speaking from a point of information on what has been going on. As a pastoralist, I will be better placed to use my experience and my upbringing to make sure these communities actually get what they deserve without being traumatized the way they used to be. You know, I mean, the information that is in circulation has never favored them. It is full of stereotyping. It is just too negative, poor publicity and very negative publicity. When I'll be on board, I will make sure the right information is given, the right analysis is given, so that their lives is going to be improved. At least be sure their own will be on board. And the information and anything that they would want to have will be truly from my personal life, personal experience. So be assured that one will be well done. Now, on the side of the growing economy of East Africa community, just as it is always written in the world of economy, you need numbers to grow the economy. You need a population that would do production. You need, again, a population that would consume what is produced. So if we grow and grow more, that will be to the advantage of the community, because we will have many targets around, they will have many supplies, we will have the mode of trade will really be up to it, because the people that will be producing and the people consuming and the people trading across each member state will be a good population that will grow economy in terms of value.
Thank you, Beatrice. Now we'll take batches of 2, 2, 2, or 3, then you answer. I'll start with Naisula. One question.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to know from the nominee, in case you're approved by this committee and the National Assembly, how you will walk the tight balance between protecting the interests of our country while at the same time taking care of the interest of the community. You know, there are allegations and misconceptions or conceptions that, you know, Kenya and other countries in the community compete, like Tanzania, DRC, Somalia, on other interests. So how will you walk that tight balance between the interest countries and the community's interest? The last question is on issue of relief food. Is it sustainable that in 2024 we are still talking about food, relief food and tendering processes in the areas, the ASAL areas?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and the nominee Honorable Askul. I want to know, Mr. Speaker and Chairman, how will the nominee balance, or how will the nominee gain confidence now that she has been appointed in the office of East Africa, and particularly on the ASAL, coming from one of the communities which fight other communities in the North Rift and in the entire ASAL? I want to know how she will gain confidence, because now many people are watching, and of course she knows the Bokosa, the Turkanas, are perennial and God-given enemies, and also the Samburus and the Turkanas.
God does not give enemies.
That is what we believe, Honorable
That's
Speaker.
not a statement.
Maybe you will change our thinking, but that is our thinking. So, Honorable Speaker, the nominee is being watched by the ASAL communities a lot. How will she address that issue of the conflict in the ASAL for them to gain confidence from her? Number two, the regional development agencies. These regional agencies, Honorable Speaker, there's been a thinking that these regional agencies are doing what counties are supposed to be doing. They should have actually disappeared and or work for counties. Now that they work in national government, and perhaps now, and in this case, should Parliament approve her, they will work under her. She comes from the counties that believe that these agencies should work for counties. What is her opinion, Honorable Speaker, on these regional agencies?
This nominee will take Gikaria, or you'll rest a bit. Okay, answer those two.
Thank you. Through the speaker.
And relax, don't be tense. Don't be.
I'm okay,
Yes,
Mr.
just
Speaker.
relax.
I'm okay.
And answer the questions as they come.
Mr. Speaker, I was only thinking that once there are 4 questions and then I answer that one, then invite another
Now
one.
answer Naisula's 2 questions and Posing's question.
Through the chair, the question by Mheshimiwa Naisula is on the country interest versus the community interest. Above all, I acknowledge the fact that the country is the appointing authority. And within the appointing authority, there is sovereignty of Kenya that needs to be protected. There's political interest of Kenya that needs to be protected. And I equally believe even those that are representing the community elsewhere have their own thing to protect. But now, in terms of the big agenda, Kenya being mentioned as the state that is dividing, that is pushing hard, not dividing, pushing hard for the full realization of East Africa community affairs, I believe it will not be like me alone. We will consult with the other teams. We will work on a joint decision. We will collaborate on affairs that would add value to the growth. Because at that time, it will not like I will be favoring them and disadvantaging the country, or disadvantage the country and favor them. Whatever way, I will be firm in terms of what is good for all of us as a country and as a point that would propel the growth of the community. So I will make sure it is balanced, but of course underneath, I will also know I have to protect the interests and the sovereignty of the Republic of Kenya.
On relief food.
On relief food, whether it is sustainable. Actually, for those who supply relief food to us, feel when they cushion us from the tough droughts, they are doing us a good service. But if we evaluate the period through which we have been having relief foods, there's nothing really much sustainable about it. I would explore a situation where we get alternatives, like putting a market to a choice where when you give like a safety net provision to the beneficiaries, they are able to go and buy things of their choice. Because I believe at that specific time, I also believe relief food is not well, it's not, if you look at the money they used to procure relief food is so much that would be turned into an activity in a good season. Like for example, if we have it's only in bad weather that relief food are important. But in good weather, the same money would be turned into an activity that would sustain the people positively in terms of investing food production, investing in the know-how, and how people would cushion themselves from the effect of the drought. But again, this habit of staying till they are bad enough to relieve, that is what is making our tribe, our communities in ASAL not to really have good image, because the pictures, everything at that moment of relief is terrible. But I wish we would turn that positively and say, instead of waiting for the bad moment to act, can we then use what would have been used to improve their lives when they are still healthy and good enough to run their affairs? So for me, it's not sustainable. It needs a better look of it.
Go to the next question.
Mheshimiwa posing question.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, honorable member should understand, I once served in the board of Rift Valley Water Services Board, which Pokot County fall under. So, and if it gets back to the records of what we used to supply to give that community in terms of water services, I had it as a Turkana then. I have never changed. The heart that I used to implement is the same heart that will still implement this. After all, I am only a Turkana by community, but by heart and everything else, I'm a Kenyan. I don't think if there's any Kenya, we would win another Kenya, just because you cattle rustle each other or do things. Point 2, on regional development agencies. My take of this is the regional development agencies have mandate that they had before devolution. But in the event that some of their functions are overlapping with counties, I would want a situation where we will look at what exactly are the regional development authorities doing as a role, vis-a-vis what counties are implementing. Because being a regional development agency, for example, let me use one that is in my place and my Mheshimiwa Posing's place, called KVDA. KVDA crosses 3 counties or 4. In this regional development, we always believe the project that will be implemented cuts across those counties. So that means if we talk of what people had proposed that the devolved function should be handed over to the county, in a situation where one project is cutting across 3 counties, which county in particular do you devolve this function to? So it will be difficult to have one project divided into 3 counties because the project they may have had before is cutting across several counties. So for me, even if a function is devolved, what we better do is let's make sure the bigger projects are done within the regions and the smaller projects be done in the county. In the event that the project implemented is cutting across 3 counties, the best for the region is, because I don't believe they will be doing smaller projects, region projects should be big enough to guarantee the region name called by them. So I think what we need to do is, if it is cutting across counties, then it is the representative of those counties that should be incorporated in the management of the region. That is my take. Other than saying, let's keep over everything and make sure it goes down. We also have to look at the capacities of counties. What counties can do, we'll allow them to do. What they can't do, we then, because that the devolved function does not really make a county different from national, because they are still under central government, they are still under the regional government. At least at the end of the day, we need to regulate the policies, framework through which they will be operating. And for me, regions should be there to undertake big works, and if they do small works, then they better devolve. But if they are going for big projects that are cutting across counties, that incorporate other development activities beyond in a big way, then we need to maintain them. And in the event that there is a need for counties to be involved, then let the representation of county be in the policy level of that regional thing. So that is what I would say.
Can I make a follow-up question? That does not forfeit my opportunity to ask my question. Nominee, I hear you speak passionately about regional development and that they should go ahead. But you see, there is a framework in law. The counties are formed by the Constitution, and then you have the Regional Development Act, which sets out these regional developments. It is regulated by law. So it is not that your position to say you will allow them to go to do you think there is need to amend the statutes so that we align the operations to the Constitution? Probably that will now give us an idea of how you'll operate if appointed. Do you think there is need for a review, amendment, or even removing the law completely so that you allow the Constitution to succeed because it is the mother law of the land?
Through the speaker, sir, I never said I drop, because as we speak, I'm only here to seek the favor of this committee to be appointed. So I cannot go ahead and say it should be removed. I'm here to get that affirmation. My concern is the issue of devolved functions and duplication of services. But having come from a particular background of being a county government staff, I know capacities within counties on what they can comfortably handle and what they cannot handle in terms of the expertise involved, the magnitude of the projects that we may want to realize in regional agencies. My issue is, if the report that is informing this discussion is already on board, because I'm still outside till approved, if the information informing need whether to devolve it or to put it within the state agencies is informing the fact that they should review, why not? They can review the function, they can review balance works, so that now we see whether the information that would be before us would advise otherwise. So for me, I'm not saying we drop or we maintain. I'm only saying if the report informing what is being discussed will favor devolving, we devolve. It will favor the fact that we need to review activities that are undertaken by the regional development authorities, then we do that. Thank you.
Mary Mase, Dawood, and Murugara in that order.
Thank you, through the speaker. Nominee, I want to hear your thoughts on the current East African Community funding mechanism, considering the fact that there are challenges already with the existing funding policy. We have partner states that are not honoring their obligation of remittances. So what alternative funding mechanisms would you be looking at if affirmed to this position?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. To the nominee, Madam Beatrice. I believe you have heard of the Equalization Fund, which was in Article 204 of the Constitution. Since establishment of the Equalization Fund, I believe it is about 14 billion, which has been allocated but has not been disbursed. Recently, in the last Parliament, the law was changed from the areas which it was being disbursed to. Now it is going to locations and not counties, as was previously the case. My question to you would be, do you think it was the right decision that it goes to locations, or would you suggest that it goes back to the way it was? Because there is talk that it will not serve the purpose what it was meant for. So what do you think about it? And where do you think the Equalization Fund should be used, basically? Is it in the water, electricity, roads, health facilities, or where do you think it should be used? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And nominee, we see more ways to be caught unawares as a government by whether the disasters that we experience in the country, like droughts, or even when with blessings from God, including heavy rains and floods. The net effect of both of them is lamentations that we are crying to the world out there to come and help us because we were not ready for this. If we harnessed the rains properly, we would actually possibly ameliorate the effects of droughts drastically. What are you likely to do as the Cabinet Secretary in charge of ASAL as regards all these rains that we experience, which possibly we don't make use of, followed by lengthy droughts where we lose almost everything we own? What policies are you likely to put in place to ensure that there is a balance between the two?
Go ahead and answer those three.
Through the chair, on the Honorable Mary's question on AU funding, and some of the state members not remitting what they had agreed within the memorandum of partner states. My portion is countries, we can't assume that sometimes when the particular state do not remit, it's their own making sometimes. The issue of inflation and the rate at which